Alright. My flippin' hat. Where's my flippin' hat gone? No wonder I've been having trouble concentrating. My thoughts have been pouring out the top of my head. There we go. So we got all of our frames glued up here, and it all looked pretty good. Although I notice on a lot of them I can see this low viscosity epoxy is poured down and glued like probably like 75% of my clamps to the stock. So we'll see how that all works out. But let's just start peeling some off here. Yeah. Go over these, make sure all the pads are clean. All right. This is this polyethylene here. Look at this. Boop! It's right off. That worked out quite nicely. So I'm going to peel all the clamps off of these guys, and then I got to come up with an efficient way of cleaning this all down. Probably, maybe belt sander. Fluff trim router. It's a bit fussy for that. I realized pretty recently that half of my clamps live on the other side of the shop, away from my primary gluing area. So I think one of the things I want to do actually is reorganize all my drawers and move a lot of clamps right back here, which is going to mean I'm not going to find anything for about 6 months to a year. Anyhow, this is the kind of thing that I too often do like at night off the clock, which is good for the customer, bad for my bottom line. You'd be surprised how much time you spend just unclamping things. You think about clamping stuff up taking time. Unclamping, well, it seems fast. You still got to put all these clamps away and sometimes clean up clamps and things like that. It all adds up. So I'm going to stop rolling camera on this because it's boring. And we'll come back after a bit when I figured out how I'm going to clean these up, okay? Sound good? Let's do that. Okay, so cleaning these up. So I'm using this little jig here, a bit of blocking to try and raise it up a bunch above all the pokey stuff and to get it up above this little wedge here. Just quickly hit it with some sandpaper to knock off the worst of that glue. And then I'm starting by just leveling it out with a plane to begin with. I'm just knocking this down until I'm coming close to the surface, not worrying about hitting it. And then I got the belt sander here. Hit it with that real quick. And that's it. Flip it over, do the other side. It's going pretty fast. The most awkward thing is that I don't have good geometry here for working the plane. Here we go. There's another one done. I'll worry about cleaning up this bit of squeeze out on the face later on. Otherwise, that's ready to get fitted. So I got all of our frames made up here, and they're ready to get fitted into the boat. Now, they're not going to fit like a glove. Every one of these needs bevels to be applied to them. I was really hoping that I could get them sort of square to the planking and not have to do a lot of beveling, but it just doesn't feel like it's going to go that way for me. So what I am going to do is they're all going to be square to the shear, because at the shear we have the in-whale resting against it, and not too far below that we'll be having the rub rail or the thwart riser against it. So I'm just trying to keep it squarish to that if I can. anytime you've got sort of a tricky fitting situation, it's a great idea if you've got a couple sort of mock-ups that you can try that out on first. Now these, my first couple frames are just basically out of a straight piece of stock, so it's easy to mock that up. Farther back where they're sort of out of goony shapes, not so easy. So if I were concerned about it, I would probably get like a 1x6 or something like that and just try and cut a single piece out of here. I didn't do that, but I'd hate to screw up one of these laminated ones and have to go back and start laminating a new one. That would be a real pain. I did these in two separate pieces from the start, and that's only because if I had some 2x stock on hand, I would have done these up as a single blank, laminated my backs onto them, and then split these on the bandsaw or the table saw, and then truss them out separately. But I just didn't have the stock. All I had was 1-inch stock on hand, so I decided to make them all up individually. A little bit of a hassle, but not huge. And now it's done, so it's not really a big deal. I probably saved on the time it would take to split these in half, which is not necessarily inconsiderable. So the one thing that I've got, the laps are not right on the edges of the planks. They're all up about 1/4 of an inch. And the one side is not going to match the other side exactly. And I'm going to try and match the location side to side as close as I can. And I'm going to try and square them all up to the shear plank, and the rest is going to sort of land wherever it lands. So the shear mark is the only thing that I've carried across from one to the next right here. And back down here I've got this sort of shortcut here. The reason for that is I knew I was going to laminate here. This is a cutaway for where it meets the bottom of the boat. And I just wanted to make sure that I had something to clamp onto when I laminate these guys at the ends. So I think what I'm going to do is go through this. I think I'm going to just fit them all, and then I'm going to deal with this limber hole last. Okay, let's take a look at what it's going to take to fit a frame here. So first off, I just want to sort of look at the frame on the other side and make a little bit of a notation as to how it fits. I've got marks here at the shear line where my station lines are. I indicated all of those marks earlier in the process where I punched along a line here with 2 marks close together with an awl. And that's just to make it easy to find, because there's little tiny nail holes all over the place. I need to be able to identify the ones that actually represent my station lines. And so that's just a sort of a standard that I use. They're about 1/4 of an inch apart, and I put them within 3/4 of an inch of the shear. So here we go. We've got our 2 marks right here on this particular mark. I've drawn a line on here, and down at the bottom I've noted where my frame hits the floor on the other side, and I'm going to try and match it on this side. So if we take our made up frame here, I'm going to drop it in place, and right off the bat there's decisions that I need to make about how I'm going to fit it. It actually doesn't fit all that well. It's quite a ways off of the mark. And so what I'm going to start by doing is splitting the difference, which is what I did on the other side, in terms of how it fits. I'm going to isolate the frame in terms of its position and attitude, and then we're going to scribe it to fit this position. So there's different ways I can do that. I could use a piece of blocking like this to isolate it in place. That's how I did my initial spiling in the first place. And if I line this up here on my marks, I can tweak this guy until it lands exactly where I want it to. Now the problem with this is that I can't have access to the back of here in order to scribe along this last little portion of frame, and I've got my crossball in the way on the other side, and I don't want to move that. So I'm going to have to come up with a different way. The next way I can do it is I can just try and clamp it in position. And I'm just going to use some shims to sort of block it up at one end so that I can put a clamp on it and hold it in position. So I'm just using a stack of stir sticks here to decide how far I want to block that out. So I think I'm going to go with like 4 stir sticks. Yeah, maybe we'll go 3. So I want to try and find the happy medium between how it fits at one end and how it fits at the other end. I'm going to lift this up just a little bit till it matches the shear mark. Now this first scribing is not going to get me super close, but it's going to get me in the neighborhood. So I just want to raise it up so I'm a little bit above my shoe marks up here. Got the attitude right. And because of the amount that needs to be scribed back, I basically got one spot where it's hitting hard, which is the other side of the frame at this position. I'm going to use dividers, and I'm going to scribe the whole thing like I would if I were doing log cabin scribing, you know? So we're just going to open up the dividers to the widest gap. And I need to decide on what my attitude is going to be. I think I'm just going to go square, try and keep the dividers square to the face of the planking at the midships point. That's the hardest part. It's just going to be trying to keep these dividers the same, in the same attitude. Open it up down there a little bit. Okay, so right about there. So I'm just going to take those dividers across, trying to be careful I'm not rotating the dividers as I do this, keeping them in the exact same attitude. That's how I started. That looks pretty good. And I'll do the same on the other side now. Okay, there we go. It's a fair bit of joggling I need to fix in order to get this to fit right. So we're going to move over to the bench here, put it in the vise, and start whittling this down. Tell you, yellow cedar, the grain is almost invisible on the stuff. The first thing I want to do is just deepen my joggles a little bit, because they're all going to go down a little ways more. So I'll just start by doing this by eye, just taking them down to about the depth of the next joggle that I need to accommodate. This one's quite deep. In general, I'm gunning for removing as little as possible up here in this area, because this is the part where there's two major parts that are going to attach. Down here, it doesn't really matter nearly as much. Okay, with sharp tools, we're going to start working this down. So I've got basically two lines, and what I like to do is I like to start on one side. Of course, we're checking our grain orientation, which can be a little hard to see. I'm working my way down to my line down at the edge where I've got a line. In the center, I don't have a line, so leaving it crowned in the center. So on this side, I'm doing the same thing. I've got my line there, and I'm leaving a hair of the line behind. I'm not trying to make the line go away. And just work my way down to it. So with both sides whittled down to the line, I can just remove the crown in the middle. And I'll leave this last one alone. I've only got a whisker of a pencil line here. I'm not sure if it was from when I marked it the first time. So I've got just a little bit of left, a little bit of uneven surface left. I'm just going to use a sanding stick here to just try and knock that down a hair. Okay, that looks reasonable. I know it's not quite 100%, but that's okay. Enough to get us moving. I'm just going to whittle this down until I've hit each of these steps and given it a reasonable flattening out, and then we're going to offer it up back in the boat and see how close we are. Now I know I'm not going to be 100%, but this hopefully gets me to within like 90%. And the reason it's not 100% is because it's almost impossible to keep your dividers maintaining the exact same attitude through that whole scribing process. You can try, you can screw around with levels on it, but I guarantee you won't be able to keep your eyes on the level and keep your eyes on the work at the same time. I'm not worried about trying to remove all of my tool marks. Just trying to get that line close. And the closer I am, hopefully, the closer will be when we offer it back up, obviously. There we go. That is it for that sort of basic shaping. Now we'll throw it back in the boat and we'll have a look at how we did. Well, that's a whole lot better. So it's important to get it in the exact same spot because it does make a difference. Okay. So now what I want to do is just decide on exactly where I want to put my emphasis, be it on pushing down the toe and working it until I can get this guy fitted back here, or doing the opposite. I can push back here and see how much I need to work to get the toe down. So, or splitting the difference. So usually I start by splitting the difference, rock it back and forth, and try and see where am I having the greatest amount of hang up. There's always a fulcrum somewhere. And it might be buried underneath all the edges, you know, because my edges aren't dead flat necessarily. And right off the bat, it's this one in the middle here that looks like it's the biggest culprit. So I'll just start there. I'll start by flattening this one out and probably the sort of heel of this lap here. I'm just going to go back to the vise and tweak those, and I'll be right back. Drop this back into place now. Okay. Now I've really not taken much off of those. One thing I'm going to do is just going to add myself a cert mark on the inside here, just so that I don't have to keep staring over the back side of this to figure out if I'm in the right location. So mark there, and a mark there. We'll do one in the middle too. Okay, now your attitude up and down also has an effect on this. So let's make sure we sort of pick a spot and do our best to sort of keep working from that. So I'll give myself a couple stir marks there as well. So even the little bit I took off already has had a pretty significant difference. So I'm just going to keep going over this like that, hitting it in a few spots. Look for the high spots, take those down, and try it again. See, I'm not taking very much off. I'm just doing a small amount like that, and then I test it again. Each of these testings is bringing me a tiny little bit closer. The thing I wanted to point out is at this point I can make some choices about how to fit this, and what I find is this rocking technique is often the best way to do it. So if I were to push this down at the heel, get that fitting really good, then I have to look at, if I rock it up here, where's what's going to be the fulcrum of getting this to fit nicely, because it fits pretty good up here. If I sandwich this up tight up here, it fits okay, but now it's bouncing loose down there. So where is what's the one spot that's holding it up? And it's right here in the center. So I'm going to concentrate my efforts there to try and bring that down a little further. Okay, so if I look at this one needs mostly this area back here addressed. This one needs the whole length addressed. This one needs the whole length addressed. This one needs just a little bit in the middle, but I know it's going to come down a bit, so I'm going to do the front end bit. Back here I got gaps, so I'm going to leave those alone. And at the bow there, down at the toe I got gaps, so I'll leave those alone. And I'm going to check the other side for similar things. So I've just given myself marks indicating where I need to hit this. Do that both sides. And if I leave any marks behind, I'll erase them and then start again when we do the next fitting. Okay, so look how much I take off to do that. Just take off that much. That's all. And I'm going to go back and check it again. And that got us a whole lot tighter, just that little bit. Now if I rock it, it's showing this up here that it is the bounce point. The back of this joint up here. Try that again. And it's feeling like there's a whole lot less rock already just doing those little bits. So it's kind of a game of chasing your tail back and forth like that until you finally get to the fit that you want. Of course, I can just fill this all in with epoxy right now, but I like to get myself a little bit closer before I decide to call it quits. Okay, I've gotten this down to my final fit. You could keep going and keep going, of course, but for our construction, this is perfectly acceptable. It springs into place well enough. It's still got a little bit of a rock to it, but not enough that it's really a big deal. And I'd rather just sort of move on to the rest and not worry about it too much. So from here on in, this is we'll just leave this alone and move on to the next one. And of course, we still have to think about cutting a little limber hole down in the corner there, and I'll probably pre-drill a few holes for our fastenings through the plank from the inside here, and that's just going to allow me to make sure that my aim is correct for my fastening later on. Okay, so I've got a few more left to do, and they all pretty much go exactly the same. This one is a little trickier, having an S-curve to it. I had a hard time getting my fit correct on the other side, and in fact, strangely enough, it fits better on this side than it does on the side that it was patterned from. So on the other side, I think it took me about 2 hours to get about 5 of these frames fitted like that. So I've got, 1, 2, 3 more to do, and I still have to cut all the scupper holes or the limber holes down here at the heel of the frames. So we'll do that, and then we'll do a bit of a round over on the edges, I think, before we install it. All right, one of the things I'm using to help me with alignment is this little angle block I've got clamped onto the gunnels here. And so this is just controlling the attitude of my frame. And so as I drop it into place, it nests right up against that block, and that not only helps to secure it in the orientation that I want this way, but it also controls its attitude this way, because I want it just square to the shear plank here. And so by having that there, just ensures that every time I go to fit one of these, I've got something that really registers it positively, and I can very easily sort of gently pinch over here and play around with the fit. You know, I can do my rocking trick, trying to find my little high spots. Every little bit of movement in one direction or another, or a change in attitude this way or that way, will change up how this thing fits quite dramatically. And so this is a really important little tool. Once I've got it fitting the way I like, and as I said, I'm shooting for something like within about a 32nd of an inch of a nice fit. I mean, a nice dead tight fit is great, but I'm not getting too concerned about that. I'm just going to draw where this frame lies, right up against the planking. This is going to be helping me make sure that I do a proper wet out on the planking when I do the glue up. And when that frame clamped in place, I'm just going to mark it for a couple of things. One thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark it down here on this particular frame. I need to cut it off. So I'm going to mark where the cutoff is. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a finishing nail in right up here where it hangs over the shear line. And that's just going to make sure when I go to glue this in, it'll drop right into place. So I can do my final shaping and round over and all of that sort of stuff. And I still need to drill for my fastenings. And all these other frames, I still need to do my limber holes, so I'm going to be doing that next. And I'll be doing a little round over on this very tip as well. All right. Yeah, damn it, I screwed this up. Feel pretty stupid. So I think I need to fix this.